Hi there, this is Datila with Rangers of Wrestling, and welcome to the Wrestling Time Post Show. And for tonight, I will be reviewing both AEW Rampage and Friday Night Smackdown. Let's kick things off with AEW Rampage. Okay, so AEW Rampage opened up with Daddy Magic Matt Mernard versus Jon Moxley. This was more like a 2-on-1 handicap match because, of course, Cool Hand Angelo Parker was at ringside, and he did get involved a few times in this match. And I like the fact that even Angelo Parker received a cutter. That's what he gets for getting involved. So Angelo Parker, he clotheslined Jon Moxley on the outside. I really like that sunset flip that Matt Mernard did to Jon Moxley. And I also I really like how Matt Mernard did the stomps to Jon Moxley. Basically, the stomps that Jon Moxley does. But Moxley was victorious in the end after he won with the rear naked sleeper. So he won by submission. Now, the interesting thing about this match is that it was a sports entertainer going up against a pro wrestler. And Chris Jericho is always saying that sports entertainers beat pro wrestlers. Yet in this situation, you had sports entertainer Matt Mernard lose to pro wrestler Jon Moxley. So I guess Chris Jericho is wrong. Not sports entertainers don't always beat pro wrestlers, now do they? So at the end of the match, Stokely Hathaway comes out. And he starts talking about how he knows Jon Moxley's pissed and wants to beat his ass for what they did to him last time. And he basically offers Jon Moxley to go up against a member of the firm, which ends up being Lee Moriarty. Now, they show this video package of Lee Moriarty. And so Jon Moxley basically says that Lee Moriarty is a hell of a talented guy, and the Blackpool Combat Club actually likes him. Now, if he wanted a match against him, all he had to do was ask. So, I also like Lee Moriarty, but I don't think he's going to win that match against Jon Moxley. He's probably going to get beat up in that match. But, anywho, it was a good opening to Rampage. But I think I really, really liked the Jon Moxley. I really like Jon Moxley. And I think I know he's probably going to end up losing to MJF, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Then we get Keith Lee versus Serpentico. This was a squash match. It really was. There's nothing to it. I think the match lasted less than 5 seconds. And Serpentico was already in the ring when Keith Lee came out. So that told you what was going to happen. So Keith Lee wins this match. Obviously, come on now. But it was a segment at the end that is worth talking about. So Acclaim come out, and they basically started talking about how they were with Billy Gunn this morning, and yet now he's missing. He's not answering any phone calls. They don't know where he's at, and accuse Keith Lee of knowing where Billy Gunn is. And they also say that Sneaky Swerve Strickland is nowhere to be found. Now, Tony Schiavone says that Billy Gunn had a family emergency, but the Acclaim says that they are his family and he has no emergency. And then out of nowhere, it cuts to the Titantron and you see Swerve Strickland laughing. He's just laughing. And we find out there's going to be Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaim, probably for those tag titles at Full Gear on November 19th. And he starts talking about how his favorite genre of movies is horror, and he considers himself a Hollywood director, and this whole thing looks straight out of a horror movie, seriously. And he calls it Billy Scissorhands starting Daddy Ass himself, and that the reason that they lost the tag titles is because he blames Daddy Ass. And Billy Gunn tells Swerve Strickland to basically look in the mirror, and Swerve Strickland said that he was going to ensure Billy Gunn is not at Full Gear. He takes these pliers, and I don't know what he does. I think it looked like he cut or was trying to cut Billy Gunn's fingers off, and Billy Gunn yells "mother," and they beep it. So like I said, straight out of a horror movie. This reminds me of like a movie Hostel for some reason, like with the whole torture scene. But when it cuts back to the ring, you can see Keith Lee looks super disappointed, like extremely disappointed that Swerve Strickland did that. Now, this entire time, you know, Keith Lee has told him that they didn't need to cheat to win. And they did. Well, Swerve Strickland cheated. He gave Dax Harwood a low blow, which is why Swerve and Our Glory became number one contenders for those tag titles. I honestly think that at Full Gear, when Swerve and Our Glory loses, that's going to be their implosion as a tag team. I think that's when they split and go their separate ways, because they've had several miscommunications. You had Swerve Strickland accidentally bump into Keith Lee, and then like I think this past Dynamite, or you had Keith Lee bump into Swerve Strickland. So it seems like they can't. They're having these frequent miscommunications, and Swerve Strickland is like cheating, despite the fact that Keith Lee says that they don't need to. So they're putting in the drops of a split, that's for sure. The implosion is going to happen at Full Gear. Then we had Ty Mello versus Madison Rayne. Another example of the pro wrestler versus the sports entertainer. Ty Mello being a sports entertainer and Madison Rayne being a pro wrestler. After all, she is a head coach for the women's. This was a good match, but again, it was to showcase the whole pro wrestlers versus sports entertainer thing. I really like that sliding lariat that Madison Rayne did to Ty Mello. That pump knee strike in the corner, which Ty Mello followed up with the Ty KO, was actually pretty cool. And in this instance, a sport entertainer did beat a pro wrestler. So maybe Chris Jericho is right. Maybe 9 times out of 10, maybe 1 time out of 10, I should say, a sports entertainer wins. Because like I said earlier in the night, it was Jon Moxley versus Matt Mernard, and Matt Mernard lost by submission, and he's a sports entertainer. So this one, a sports entertainer beat a pro wrestler. Maybe Chris Jericho isn't wrong after all. We also found out that the Full Gear Eliminator is going to start, and Dante Martin is the first participant in that match. And so we get a backstage segment with Ethan Page, who basically starts talking about how MJF changed their plans, and that firm made MJF number one contender, and that they changed their plans because MJF decided to change his plans. And so Ethan Page says he's going to enter the Full Gear Eliminator tournament, and he's going to do what MJF is going to fail to do, and that is beat Jon Moxley. Honestly, my personal opinion, I think it's time that Ethan Page wins some gold. He's been in AEW, like a year now, and he hasn't won gold. I'm surprised that when he was teaming up with Scorpio Sky, didn't win the tag titles. So I don't know what happened there, but I think this whole thing with MJF is kind of like, is he really being sincere? Is he truly trying to change? Or is he trying to trick us? And he's actually like going to be a full heel at Full Gear. Alrighty then. So before we get to the main event, you guys know we always have a promo. And it is Matt Taven of the Kingdom and Wardlow. Matt Taven saying that he won the TV title during his time in Ring of Honor on his first night there, I believe. And he says it's time of Taven's brand new Taven Network television champion. And Wardlow basically says that Matt Taven seems confident, even though he's stepping in the ring against Wardlow. And he's going to welcome the Kingdom to Wardlow's world. Kind of reminds me of Bobby's World, that cartoon. We found out that there's also going to be an All-Atlantic City Dream Match Championship where the champion can defend against any opponent of his choosing, I believe. So makes me wonder who's going to challenge for that All-Atlantic title. Do you guys have any ideas or thoughts? All right, so then we get the TNT Championship match. It's Wardlow versus Matt Taven. Matt Taven making his big in-ring debut. And interesting thing, they came out to I Got Something For You, which was the theme song that Adam Cole Baby used in Ring of Honor. And I don't know about you guys, but I wanted to shout Adam Cole Baby when I heard that song. It was actually I did not expect to hear it. I Got Something For You, but nevertheless it happened. Now if you watch Impact Wrestling, this past Thursday on Impact, the Kingdom was fired. Granted, they do tape in advance, so they were fired, and then they would have made their debut on Rampage. So I actually really like this match. Like, I became a fan of the Kingdom in Impact, like with their whole Honor No More segment. So I really liked Honor No More, actually. But so Wardlow shows Matt Taven, and like Taven, like he took out Wardlow, but of course, like it was because of distraction by Mike Bennett, who attacking him from behind, and Maria getting in between Wardlow and her husband. Mike Bennett helped send Wardlow crashing to the steel steps. I really like that running knee to the face that Matt Taven did to Wardlow. And I honestly kind of thought maybe Matt Taven was going to take that TNT title off of Wardlow, and I would not have been upset. So Maria just got involved in this. She distracted the referee, and Wardlow hit Matt Taven with 4 Powerball Symphonies, and Wardlow ended up being victorious. So he retained his title. I guess it was a good match. I enjoyed it. Fightful Select did report that the Kingdom is signed to a multi-year deal. It doesn't say the length of the deals, and Maria is contracted as a talent only. So I wonder why Tony Khan wouldn't allow Maria to help book ROH or with the women's division. So afterwards, Mike Bennett attacks Wardlow with the chop block. And Samoa Joe comes out. You guys know they're teaming as War Joe. He takes out the Kingdom. And interesting, Powerhouse Hobbs comes out, and he looks like he's more jacked. And the Embassy come out, and they attack War Joe. And interesting thing is that Brian Cage took out Samoa Joe, and Powerhouse Hobbs took out Wardlow. Now, Powerhouse Hobbs held up the TNT title, and Brian Cage grabbed Samoa Joe's title. And in the words of Big E, we're gonna get big meaty men slapping meat, because Powerhouse Hobbs versus Wardlow, I think that's gonna be for the TNT title. I think that's actually gonna be a good match. They're both big men, but they can move, especially Wardlow. So overall, I would say tonight's show was actually a decent show. There's not one thing I disliked about it. Was it as strong as Dynamite? No. I don't think Rampage is ever as strong as Dynamite. But you know what? For it being a 1 hour show, I thought it was good. That was a decent show. And I'm going to give this, based on everything, I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10. And that would conclude Rampage. So now, SmackDown. Everyone's favorite Friday night show. SmackDown kicked things off with the Brawling Brutes in the form of Ridge Holland and Butch versus Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa. Sheamus was not there. He was written off with an injury, but he's getting married. So congrats to Sheamus for getting married. Now, this whole match was interesting because before the match started, you see backstage, the Bloodline's backstage, and Sami Zayn finally realizes that Jey Uso did help him against Kofi Kingston. And he wants the Bloodline to raise their hands in victory because Roman Reigns is on his way. And so he tells them that all hands on deck. So everything is going fine in this match. You know, I really like the 10 beats of the Baron to Sami Zayn that Butch and Ridge Holland did to him. And everything's fine up into where Jey Uso, he pulled Sami Zayn out of the ring because he was protecting him. Now, Sami Zayn was arguing with Jey Uso, basically saying that he got it, that he didn't need Jey to help him. And Solo Sikoa was trying to be the mediator. He's trying to keep the peace. He tries to separate them. Ridge Holland just came out of nowhere and laid everybody out. And then Butch was able to pin Sami Zayn. So the Brawling Brutes were victorious. Then you can see Jey getting in Jimmy's face. And then Roman comes out. And there is going to be some acknowledging of the situation. So basically, the Bloodline segment, this isn't a Bloodline segment. This segment starts off like any other Bloodline segment, with Roman Reigns asking the city that they're in to acknowledge him. In this case, it was St. Louis. And he says it was time to finally acknowledge the giant elephant in the room. And he makes it a point to say that if they want to act like kids, they will be treated like kids. And the funny thing about this is that when Roman's music played, you could see Sami, Jay, Jimmy, and Solo like all act like they were like nervous and something, like they were 4 little kids and their dad was coming home. They were about to get yelled at. So Roman wanted everything to be laid out on the table. He wanted to fix the problem right now. And so Sami Zayn pretty much lays everything out on the table. He says that there's been a communication breakdown between him and Jay, which is true. There has been. And that he's always liked Jay. And that they used to get along, but ever since he started hanging out with the Bloodline, they haven't been getting along. He doesn't know what he did to offend Jay, but he is sorry. And he wants to be cool and bury the hatchet. And so Sami Zayn tries to extend his hand out, and Jay is just not having it. He is not having it. And Jay starts saying how he doesn't like Sami Zayn's face. He doesn't like him. He doesn't like his hair. He doesn't like that shirt. He doesn't like Sami Zayn being around his family. And he says that he's the only one in the Bloodline that will say the truth because nobody in the group likes him. And he starts to ask if Sami Zayn will bleed for the Bloodline. And Sami tells him that, like, Roman wants peace. And this is where Jay says that he doesn't give a damn what the tribal chief says. And Roman's face at this instance, he's looking down and he quickly, like, looks up and he turns over and is like, at that moment, Jay knew he fucked up. Like, if that is that perfect representation of that me. And this whole segment, Sami, Roman, and Jay all played their parts really well. They were awesome in this segment. And it was a hilarious segment too. So, like, Sami Zayn tries to be mediator and he tries to keep the peace. And he acknowledges that what Jay said was messed up, but Jay didn't mean it. He hasn't been Uzi and he's been going through a lot. So, like, you could tell Roman is, like, breaking character here, and he starts laughing when Sami Zayn says Uzi. And then he takes the microphone and he asks Jay if that's what if that is what's going on. He hasn't been feeling Uzi, and if he you can see, like, Jay, like, go like this because he's trying to cover up the fact that he started to laugh and he's breaking character. It's like Sami Zayn always gets Roman, Jimmy, or Jay to break character and start laughing. I mean, Sami Zayn is a pretty hilarious guy. And Roman says that if Jay can't find his inner Uzi, he's going to do something that Jay does not like. He's going to take away the honorary out of Sami Zayn's and make him a full-blown Us. And he was going to change Sami Zayn to Sami Uso. And so Sami Zayn's face with this whole, when the Romans said, that was hilarious. I mean, Sami Zayn played his role really well, and that's facial expressions absolutely nailed it. I mean, adding Sami Zayn to the Bloodline, in my opinion, was, like, probably the best thing that could happen, because eventually, like, the Bloodline was getting stale. It was always the same shtick, I should say, because they acknowledged me and he smashed them and he ran through everybody. But Sami Zayn being added to the Bloodline has been a breath of fresh air, and he's been honestly the best thing going on SmackDown. So I actually really enjoyed this whole segment, from the match to this whole segment. That honestly, great way to kick off SmackDown. It truly added to it. I was laughing hysterically, honestly. It was a really great segment. They all did their part really well. All right. So then we just followed up with the New Day versus Maximum Male Models. And this is an okay match. Really didn't do anything for me, honestly. The New Day were victorious. It kind of seems to me, because, like, the Usos are close to beating the New Day's record of being the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. So it kind of seems to me like maybe they're going to revisit the Usos versus the New Day rivalry. But this match was okay. Just didn't do it for me. We get a Sonya Deville segment again. And once again, she starts talking about Liv Morgan. So Liv Morgan comes out and attacks her, and we find out that next week's going to be a no DQ match between her and Liv Morgan. Mind you, next week's SmackDown is actually being taped tonight because they are going to Saudi Arabia for a crown jewel. So it's being taped. So next week's SmackDown is not live, it's taped. So we get a Braun Strowman segment, and he starts to say how there's always someone bigger and stronger than you. And he says that it's clear almost is bigger than him. And it basically gives a rundown of all the things that Almost has done, from like smashing cars to throwing flying chairs. And he says that when it comes to challenges, the bigger the better. And there's no giant too big for the monster of all monsters. Again, I don't know how Almost versus Braun Strowman's going to go. It's probably going to be a train wreck, a car crash, maybe the bathroom break match. It's probably going to be, I'm going to be optimistic and say this might be a decent match, but it could also be a horrible match. I honestly think Braun Strowman's going to beat Almost. And if that happens, I think Almost is done for. I felt like Almost was a dollar store version of Braun Strowman. Maybe an actually dollar store Great Khali. But I think it's done. I think Almost is done. I don't see him beating Braun Strowman. And so we get the Ronda Rousey Open Challenge. And Ronda basically starts talking about how only the great can recognize the greatest, because everybody around her is too mediocre. Now, it was reported earlier by PWI that Emma, or Tenille Dashwood, was backstage at this taping, and she ended up being Ronda Rousey's opponent for this match. Now, I have to say, when Emma was in WWE, I liked Emma in WWE, but when she went over to Impact, I wasn't a big fan of her in Impact. She was part of a tag team called The Influence, along with Madison Rayne and Caleb with the K. I wasn't a fan of her. I didn't like her run in Impact. I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of her character and stuff like that in Impact. But here, she held her own against Ronda Rousey. Ronda mocked Emma's, you know how Emma had that dance gimmick at first? Ronda mocked that as Emma was coming down to the ring. Commentary made note that tomorrow would be 5 years to the date that Emma got released. I can't believe it's been 5 years. Wow. Seems a lot longer than that. But I really like that side rush and leg sweep. And like I said, Emma really held her own. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. She did tap out to Ronda Rousey. And so Ronda won by submission. Now that Emma's back, I don't know what Dana Brooke has been or what she's been doing, but maybe they can reunite Emma and Dana Brooke and have that whole end gimmick. And since they were a tag team, maybe at some point they can challenge for the women's tag titles. Who knows? Maybe they might go to NXT and challenge for the women's tag titles. Dana Brooke's not doing anything. You could pair her up with Emma again. So we found out that at Crown Jewel, it's going to be a last women's standings match. It's going to be Bayley versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. And then backstage after this match, you see Shayna Baszler approach Ronda. And then for some reason, Natty shows up. And she starts talking about how she would be women's champion. And she answered the open challenge. And Shayna Baszler took her out. Basically choked her out. And I have to say, Ronda and Shayna should be a tag team. They should be a tag team, and they could be a very strong, dominant tag team. I honestly see Ronda and Shayna Baszler being a credible tag team for the women's tag team titles. You just imagine, you can have a repeat of the golden models, the golden role models. You know how Sasha and Bayley were the Raw Women's Champion and SmackDown Women's Champion, and they held the tag titles. They can do that with Ronda and Shayna. But who knows if they'll do that. But I honestly wouldn't mind a pairing between Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Make them a tag team. Make them win the tag titles and run through the entire division. Make them unstoppable. So we had a 6-man tag match. Player Holla is Legado del Fantasma versus Hit Row and a partner of their choosing. And it ended up being Shinsuke Nakamura of all people. And so like a brawl broke out even before the match started. And like you could see BFAB calling out to Zelina, but Zelina just didn't give her any attention. Top Dollar looked like he was dressed as Mr. Sokka when he came out with that thing over his head. So, you know what? I really wouldn't mind seeing a one-on-one match between Nakamura and Santos Escobar. I feel like this match really didn't showcase Legado del Fantasma as much, and I'm a little annoyed that they lost this match. I felt like they should have won. I honestly feel like they should have won. You know, I don't think this match really showcased what Legado del Fantasma can do, and I feel some type of way that this was their big match as a team, as a unit together, and they lost to Hero and Nakamura. But I don't know. I mean, they did have a rivalry on NXT, so maybe this is the start of their rivalry again. We get a quick backstage segment with Roman Reigns, and they're watching a video of Logan Paul, training, and Paul Heyman makes a note to say that Logan Paul broke his hand and he has steel pins inserted in his hand. He starts talking about how Lesnar won the UFC title in his third match, and Roman just doesn't want to hear that. So Logan Paul wasn't there, but this build hasn't been. I mean, the build to Logan versus Roman has been okay, but Logan challenging Roman kind of just came out of nowhere. And we have an LA Knight segment, and it's basically talking about how it seems like we're gonna get LA Knight versus Ricochet, because he says Ricochet basically starts to say that LA Knight would get one more reception if he didn't act like God's gift to SmackDown. And LA Knight says he is God's gift to SmackDown. I honestly think that would be a good match. Ricochet versus LA Knight. We get Karrion Kross versus Madcap Moss. And this actually, Madcap Moss was actually pretty good in this match. You know, I always felt like that happy Madcap Moss gimmick that he had didn't do him any favors. And Madcap Moss can be like taken seriously. He just needs to find something for himself. But this wasn't a bad match. He held his own against Karrion Kross, who made his big return after being almost ran over by Drew McIntyre. But of course, Karrion Kross won by submission. Karrion Kross sending Drew McIntyre a message, basically saying that Moss put up a better fight than McIntyre, and that history will repeat itself once they step inside the cage. They're going to have a steel cage match at Crown Jewel. So SmackDown ends with a Bray Wyatt promo. And this promo, like, his entrance was longer than the promo, but I really like that they have a song. I'm still trying to figure out what song that is. It's a nice song. I like it. And you see him do like the whole lantern and the blue light, which is obviously a tribute homage to Brody Lee. And he starts talking about how all this is pretty new to him. And he's not going to lie that when people start chanting, it makes him feel to do something wild. He says he's here as himself. There's no smoke and no mirrors, no mask, just him and the crowd. And that he's going to present to us the best version of himself and is proud and will do spectacular things while he is here. And he's talking about how the majority of his life he's been out of control and his emotions don't work like other people. And that something doesn't feel right despite trying really hard. And he's done horrible things to get to where he is. And then, out of nowhere, like, on the Titantron, you see, like, this figure, Uncle Howdy, as he called himself. He starts talking about how Bray needs to revel into what he is and that he's a liar, that he claims he doesn't wear a mask. And they both know that's not true. That he can see him and he'll never be able to hide from his Uncle Howdy. So I couldn't really make out the voice. It kind of sounded like Bray Wyatt, but I don't know if this was actually Bray Wyatt, because you don't have to play this live. Like, since it was on the Titantron, they obviously pre-recorded it. So who knows? Is that Bray Wyatt? Is this potentially maybe Dutch or Vincent? I don't know. It's really hard to tell because you're wearing a mask, and you could tell they changed the voice a little bit so you wouldn't know who it was. But I wonder where I am really liking where this is going. So it seems like every week we're gonna get like these little segments of Bray until like we get to the whole grand reveal now. And I think there was plans up to WrestleMania. So it's barely November. So I'm very curious to see what this all leads to. But overall, SmackDown was okay. Okay, like I like the Bray Wyatt stuff. Really love the opening match and the Bloodline segment. But the New Day didn't do it for me. The open challenge was okay. And I didn't like that 6-man tag match. So also gonna give SmackDown. I'm gonna give SmackDown probably a 7 out of 10 just for that. But it was okay. What did you guys like better, Rampage or SmackDown? I feel like both shows was okay. I didn't like neither one or the other better, so. But both shows were okay. I enjoyed both shows, but there were things on SmackDown I just didn't like that. But with that being said, you guys, thank you guys all so much for watching and for the continuous support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever I go live or release a new video. And I'll see you guys live after Raw. Bye.